Hello, everyone. So I'm Benjamin Cohen-Liver. I'm a PhD in AI and robotics. I've entered BGFi Analytics this year in the innovation cell. I'm now leading the innovation cell, especially in data science. And that will be one of the goal of this webinar is to present you this innovation cell in data science. My work has mainly been focused on innovation, but also in research, as I worked for 3 years in a 9-lab consortium, European consortium of research centered around robotics and machine learning, deep learning. And the goal of this project was roughly, to sum up, to provide with a robot that could explore environment and in particular that was usable for people. So it was a mix between research and usability. So we tried to provide innovation and research in the same way. So all my career so far has been centered around innovation and research in AI and robotics. So that's where I come from. This webinar is about outsourcing innovation in data science. The title was longer, but for this introduction slide, I shortened it. It will be in 6 parts, 6 little parts. I'll first introduce BGFi Analytics, just for you to really understand where my speech comes from, our position about innovation and about data science. That will be very quickly this presentation, and then we'll talk about innovation and how important it is for all kinds of companies. Then, of course, the big change that happened the last years about the age of data and how it changed innovation. Then we'll address the question of how to innovate, which is a big question. We won't be able to exhaustively answer this huge question. It would take hours, but just our clues on how to innovate maybe better and what do we propose. That's our point number 5, which is our approach. And then concrete cases of projects we led in the last months and years. So BGFi Analytics is a key player in analytics and data science for 15 plus years. It's been created basically by 3 technicians, 3 experts in their field, especially in BI back in the days, because created in 2002, 200 collaborators all around the world. You see all the main figures in this slide, but mainly it's like 6 partners, Alteryx, IBM, AWS, Tableau, Microsoft, and SAS, 120 projects and more coming. And one important milestone in the history of BGFi Analytics has been when we integrated the positive thinking company. And then the task force has grown from 200 to 2,000 collaborators, 20 offices in Europe, Tunisia, and Southeast Asia and Australia. This put BGFi Analytics as the data science and analytics core of the PTC, of the positive thinking company. So BGFi Analytics represent this expertise in BI and now, since the last years, advanced analytics, and we'll explain a bit more what we understand by advanced analytics. Innovative analytics to empower business is our motto. That is what we believe should be innovation and data science at the service of business users. That is really understanding that doing things that we know and that clients need is something, but trying to push forward and trying to propose new things and to propose improvements in functionings, trying to propose disruptive things and to be able also to implement them, always this technicality we are proud of, is very important to us. And that's our point about innovation. I took this sentence from Dan Ariely, which is a professor at the Duke University in behavioral economics and psychology, and it is a very famous sentence. There's this placeholder, we'll see why right away. Placeholder is like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they are doing it. And that's something that could apply for innovation, machine and deep learning, artificial intelligence, big data, or data science. and so many more, and cloud and IoT and so many things. Everyone talks about it. Nobody really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, and so everyone claims they are doing it. We'll see also concretely the truth and some concrete figures that proves this point. That's one survey that I'm presenting you here that you might have heard of already, which is by New Vantage and they surveyed 60 C-level positions in American giants, so CEO, CTO, CDO, COO, all the chief officers positions on 60 giants such as American Express, GSK, General Motors. And what came out of this survey is that first, 72% consider having to create a data culture. We are in the presence of pretty modern companies. American Express is old, but is acting in a modern field, which is banking and also online banking and fintech kind of. They are involved in a lot of things, and still they say we have to create a data culture. Whereas 53% do not consider data as business potential. 52% admit they are not competitive enough in data, and 88% of them understand the urge to invest in big data. 88%, which is a lot. And we are talking about American giants who are having like big market shares, a lot of benefits, but still not investing enough in big data. And 75% of them, of these 88%, admit to be afraid of a disruption that would be too sudden, which means they admit that they don't invest in big data. And by big data, they understand also machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud solutions. They admit that they are too afraid of this having a huge impact on their internal functioning and on how they operate and how it might basically break everything. And there's a discrepancy with another reality, which is also by these 60 giants, is the number of chief data officers, which goes from 12% of CDOs in 2010, 12 to 68% in 2019. So a huge increase, which shows that these companies understand the need to have someone who is able to deal with data and to have a long-term vision, to be able to propose things and to handle the amount of data, the huge amount of data these companies have. We will find this discrepancy also in startups. We'll find it in medium-sized companies and in bigger companies, which is you have this understanding that data is now almost the center of a lot of things, that data is very accessible, sometimes for free, at least for very cheap, like cheaper and cheaper. We'll see afterwards why. But there is this doubt about what to do with it and how to work with it, and like this. That's what I said about anxiogenic. It scares a lot of people. Innovation, there is something like 80 different definitions of innovation because it's been studied a lot, it's been theorized a lot. Innovation can be entrepreneurial, hard to say, social. It can be transformative, it can be cumulative, it can be spasmodic or progressive, open, associative, etc., and so on and so on and so on. There are 80 of them. All of them are applied to a particular way to innovate, to apply innovation, where it comes from, what it does, etc., etc. But we think that it's more a state of mind that is more like something more like simpler, just the introduction of something new, still unknown, in something existing and established. Innovation doesn't have. It can be in some processes very complex, very specific, very detailed, and very narrowed down to a particular problem. But I think the first thing for most of companies is first to understand that there is this first will to evolve and to create something that will add value and that will not disrupt everything, that will not break everything down, just to say there is this something new that we want to introduce in our functionings, in our business, and that we think might add a lot of value, and it will. So the core actually of innovation is more evolution, just wanting to evolve, not to transform everything, just to evolve. And this evolution starts when there is this will of evolution. There is this first notion of serendipity, which is this place led to, how would you say, random things happening, like random knowledge emerging from just being open to changes and to evolution. It's just basically brainstorming without maybe a very strong and well-defined purpose. Just letting the people in charge of like the relevant people, letting them think, research a bit, and come up with new ideas. And it leads to increase of culture of different areas and domains and fields that wouldn't have been explored otherwise. Maybe in machine learning, maybe in image recognition, maybe in also like agile processes, or a lot of different things. Just culture about new things, and this culture will also bring new skills, because whenever you learn something new, then you start to work with it, you start to read more about it, and then you start to apply certain things and to actually do things, which will increase the skills. And by increasing the skills, the culture, you will end up adding some value if you transform it into concrete product. And the big difference about old school innovation and more modern innovation is that this value is added in a different way, because the raw material behind our digital world is very different. Data is a raw material, as gold is, as oil is, as steel is. It's a raw material. But the huge difference with traditional raw materials is that it's theoretically not infinitely reproducible, but almost, let's say, infinitely reproducible. And that makes a huge difference, because when you want to innovate, you don't have to either lose a bit of your raw material, because you can copy it, and you can do a lot of different experiments with the same bit of data. So you don't have to lose it. You don't have to put your business on pause while you're trying to innovate to make it evolve. We're not talking about a raw material that is, again, gold or space or whatever. It's just data. You can reproduce it. So you can have your business working, continuing to produce products, solutions, and you can, on the other side, make your research and trying to innovate. And that's a huge difference between old school innovation and modern innovation, data-centric, data-driven innovation. And that has to do, obviously, with the age of data. That's a little chart that you might have seen already. It was in 2017, super old already, 2 years ago. And just every minute of the day, how the amount of data that is produced throughout the world. So LinkedIn is, for instance, 120 plus new professionals. That's not that much, but look at the YouTube users watch. 4 million videos watched in 1 single minute every day, and it was 2 years ago. So we are far. I'm waiting for the 2019 figures. Maybe it will be next year, but you can already see that there's an incredible amount of data generated. The weather channel is 18 million forecast requests. Americans in the top left, in the bottom left part, Americans use 2 million gigabytes of data in 1 minute. Just the Americans. So data is way more accessible, is generated with such a high pace, is accessible, way more accessible through a lot of platforms, through a lot of sensors, and through a lot of, like, you can get this data very easily and way more easily than in the past. So with all this data, there are a lot of things to do. That's this shift of paradigm where you have the increase of the amount of sensors that is supported by the increase of the storage abilities through the cloud, or through also hard drives, but more and more through the cloud. Then an increase in the power of processing, also through the cloud or also through laptops or actual computers that are really getting more and more powerful with computation on graphical cards, GPU, etc. That's GPU computation on GPU is kind of an old thing, but still it allowed actually to make machine learning and deep learning work way better. And on a personal computer, you can already achieve a lot of different things with just a personal computer. And all of this was supported by the number of connections that just skyrocketed. This number of connections between the sensors, be it your phone, be it your internet provider, your internet connections, be it an IoT, Internet of Things, so little devices that could be in cars, that could be in trucks, that could be anywhere, in your connected watch, etc. The amount of storage, and so the power. And all these four things created this shift of paradigm where we clearly have an access to this raw material that is way easier. You don't have to mine your data in a place far away from where your business is, and to ship it back to you, and then you work on it. Just have connection, storage, and power, and boom, you can start to work on your data. And this data requires skills, obviously, to understand. It's not just like, oh, cool, I have data, but what's next? And that's this data science field that is now something that is very much used, the term data science, data scientist, citizen data scientist, etc. But data science really exists since data exists. As in, whenever anyone had a few data in hand, even if it's 3 numbers of, I don't know, temperatures, 500 before Christ, and trying to compute an average, or they didn't have thermometers, but you get the idea. Whenever you had some numbers, you were already starting to do some data science, just average, standard deviation, just maybe probability, 1/2 that the coin flips on one side or the other side. Data science is not something new. The data science term it's 40 years old, something like that, but what it embeds is way older. So there is this big thing around data science, but don't be afraid of that. It's really about statistics and a bit more. We'll see. The data science basically is upheld by data scientists. And data scientists, if we think about just people dealing with data, they started by counting with their hands. We started counting with our hands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Then just paper and pen, then a little calculator, computer. But now the data scientist has way more solutions available. Basically, this is a kind of summary of all the solutions, products, and possibilities a data scientist has to not know, but still has to be aware of, and kind of in each little square has to understand what it is about. So we have here, it's not digestible, it's on purpose, like it's choking. There are so many now to deal with data. You have solutions about infrastructure, about analytics, about all what this has to do with machine learning, deep learning, the cloud solutions, dedicated to transportation, life sciences. You have a number of solutions that is just incredible. And the data scientist has to not only know about statistics, but also about the solution, about how to code, because it goes through a computer now. So the data scientist has to know how to develop programs, has to be able to create models, to understand them, to present them. And that's basically a startup by themselves. A data scientist almost has to be a whole startup by themselves. They have to be able to know how to capture data, that is the acquisition, how to understand how data stems from the sensors that are available, but also to process them, to clean them, to prep them, and then to analyze, and also to maintain all the sources of data, and to be sure that the data doesn't get corrupted, doesn't get flawed or missing, and then to communicate. And that's also an important part of the data scientist's job nowadays, about the the person who is able to deal with data. When you have a functioning that is centered around data, then this is critical. The data part is critical. So this communication is super important because it means the data scientist has to be sure about their result, but to be sure to explain clearly what they did and what does the data say and how it says and how it will impact the future of the company, to say we have this results. Now this has a huge impact on what we believed and what we can do with that. So that's very complicated for a data scientist to do it by themselves. So how to innovate knowing that? How to innovate with data? How to innovate with a data scientist who is overloaded with so many different things he or she has to do? How to innovate when there is a clear shortage in data scientists, how would you say? I give you the advice to go just to watch at the numbers of some LinkedIn and also Indeed surveys about data scientists. There's a big shortage in data scientists. There's a huge need. There is a bit of how would you say, timidity about the companies to invest in big data, and on the third side there is a big shortage in data scientists. So basically, when you still want to innovate and evolve have a data-driven innovation for your company, you kind of have three different major possibilities, which would be first to create your own research and development cell. This is long. This involves really defining correctly the cell. You have to hire a lot of people, often researchers. And for some companies, they know that sometimes researchers coming from the academic world it's not easy sometimes to get them, to have them integrated really fully in the business functioning. So there is this important part about hiring critical people for critical positions. It's obviously a long-term dynamic. You might not have any results before 3, 4, 5, maybe more years. That's long because that's research, and that's the thing. And the development part is in the cell, but usually you have researchers that just research and developers who try to transform and translate what the researchers want into something usable. That's very long. You have on the other side the startup acquisition, which we know the big five, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, but also Uber, but also a lot of them are doing, which is to buy the innovation. You have little startups made of very motivated young people who are working their ass off, trying to build products that are sustainable, that are disruptive, that are very ambitious, not necessarily working at full scale, and sometimes overselling it, obviously, but still there is something. And this is very interesting for the big companies. There is more and more signs that these big five and other companies such as the big five won't be able to innovate for long because they are too big. As a lot of big companies, it's hard for big companies to really innovate. It's hard because there are a lot of processes to take into account. There are a lot of functionalities to take into account. You can't just innovate and bring innovation in a company. It has to be slow the bigger your company is. So buying up a startup can be interesting, but it's very expensive, especially with the bubble around how much these startups are valued. So it's very expensive. There is clearly a modification of both sides of both internal functionings. For the startup, can be firing people, can be restructuring it, but also for the company that buys the startup up, which is to still having to tweak their functioning to embrace this new sudden wave of innovation coming. So that's very expensive. That can be tricky, and that can have some backside effects that are not wanted. You can also go open source. That is trying to making your data anonymous and put them out there. Hackathon or Kaggle challenges. You can do that obviously, and it's interesting, but it's more trying than here to. I'm sorry for the little typo on the slide. Intellectual property question. It's more about all of a sudden creating a big load of workforce, having a big workload all of a sudden. There are problem of intellectual property, and there is still need to follow up with the production phase. You have your data, you put them out there, you have a bunch of data scientists that are very motivated, again, often young people, working on them, proposing you very good models, but then you have still to understand these models. You can apply them directly if you want, like plug and play if it works, that's lucky. But if anything changes, if your data slightly change, if what your data, the meaning of your data change through time, like months, years later, then your model, if you don't know how to deal with it, if you don't understand it, if you can't maintain it, then all of this is a bit is not worth anything anymore, unfortunately. So it's still a bit tricky, this open source phase. And you have then the external innovation cell possibility, which is, we think, one of the best ways to help innovation, to do some innovation, because it will be quick, it will be simple, there will be this transparency of developments, which is something we really care about at BGFi Analytics, which is this ability to be upfront about what we did, about what we can do, but what we can't do, and also this long-term support. But it's not like just you have a problem and we'll try to sell some human power to fix the problem. It's not only that at all. It's also a lot about training, and about training your teams to understand what we did for you, and to say we care about you gaining skills about these new things we are bringing. And it's not just, we believe that the more skilled you are, the more questions that will arise for a company. You will get to know more and more about some field, let's say machine learning, and you'll be like, wow, okay, maybe with this algorithm I could do that, maybe with this I could do that, now that I understand more how it works. And then we would be pleased to, again, work with you and help you with this new wave of innovation. So this external innovation cell is, at BGFi Analytics, is composed of a leading researcher on, let's say, one project, a leading researcher, a leading technical expert, but also sales and human resources. Human resources are very important in this cell. Then other researchers and technical experts and the consultants, a lot of consultants that are very experts at a lot of different fields. And this little ecosystem is what we think is like a mini startup dedicated to innovation, and that we see it as a complete graph that is everyone is communicating with everyone. It's more like a horizontal hierarchy. We just have a leading researcher and technical expert, as in the ones that you will mainly get in touch with, mainly communicate with, so that you don't have to communicate with 100 people. But the idea is to have this cell that is dedicated to innovation. And this cell, we will connect to your company, given your needs. We will directly connect it to this little part you can see. So you still have your functionings, still have your architecture experts, your CDO, CTO. It's not about transforming your internal functioning. We just have this little space where you are ready for innovation, where you want to evolve on this part of your business, and we just plug there our whole innovation cell. Don't worry, it's not invasive. It's just an illustration, but the idea is there, is that you don't have to buy up a startup. You don't have to create a whole research and development cell. We just have this little kind of collaboration and symbiotic, short-term symbiotic relationship where we just plug, we do the project together, and then poof, we adapt to your structure. So it's basically all the good sides of the three different approaches that you saw earlier on how to make innovation. It would be, you have the benefits of researchers, as the researchers are our innovation cell. So researchers that have a lot of understanding of the state of the art, that are also able to understand complex algorithms, complex concepts in really like this research part. You have the technical expert for the D of R&D, this development part, and which means that we can propose you innovative things, but we can also implement them, and that's very important. And then we have, again, human relations, other technical experts, and we all work together. And our standard methodology will be first to have this phase of meetings, discussions, and definitions of the problem, obviously. Then constitution of the team on our side, which is amongst this whole cell, we are going to brainstorm and we're going to discuss that, and we're going to pick everyone that are interested, that are relevant, and creating this team of development of innovation. Also with preliminary data analysis, because once we have the definition of the problem, we need, well, data. It's data-driven innovation. And then this presentation, recommendations, and maybe a go for further work. This will go circular, will be a cycle of collaboration and co-creation and collaborative creation for as long as it's needed, as long as we need, as long as you need. And then when we have a go, we have this specific development. By specific development, we mean developing something that is specific to you and not just trying to put something that we have on our shelves and say, oh, this will be good for them. We have a lot of things on our shelves, but what we care about is to tweak it to be very much specific to what you need, because every company's need is different, really. Formalization, and then prototype, proof of concepts, minimum viable product, and documentations. And after that, there is the code, there is the documentation about it. We have the support, training, transfer of knowledge, and improvement recommendation, which are also important. And this last phase of our methodology also is a cycle where we care again about training you, transferring this knowledge so that you are able to maintain it by yourself if you want. We don't think developments should go in silos. We don't think if you work with us, you'll have a development that only us can understand. And then if you call someone else developing something for you, it's understandable only by them. And then you are in the middle and you don't know how to do anything because everyone has their own barriers. So to transfer our knowledge and to train your teams, if you are in need of that, we care about it, because then you are independent and you feel free, and then you hopefully come back to us for more collaboration. And all of this then go together because, as I said, we believe that the more skilled you are, the more questions that will arise, and the more value you will see you can bring to your company. But it needs skills and knowledge. And to end up with this, I'm gonna talk to you about concrete cases of last months and years, like 3 typical experiences we had with different levels of innovation. And the first was with fintech, where it was basically the study and consulting activity, which is very important and which is really trying to provide with insights and, again, knowledge to someone in need, to a company who needs it, and to not only say, this is good, this is not good, here is our advice, but also to foresee what could come next and where they could lead to. So this was about clustering data for like the behavior of some data that were pretty unpredictable, and how to do it in real time with highly missing and highly skewed data. So a lot of missing information, and how to still be maybe able to predict what will come next and in what category parts of data would fit in. About confidential data, often in fintech, because we are used to work with confidential data, so we don't have actually the true true data. We have anonymous data, but no problem, we can work with that. And here it was, but recommending them what to do next, if also what they are doing now is correct or not, and to propose new things, improvements. So that's kind of a short-term project, pretty classical. Usually in weeks, like less than a month. Then we had this longer project with industry, an industry business, like in industry broadly, about a minimum viable product, and that was a midterm kind of project, like less than 6 months. And here it was really trying to provide them with something really usable, and it was about predicting maintenance, predicting events that have a temporal causation. So we had thousands of different sensors for machines, different machines, very complicated things. We went there a lot of times because that's also something we care about, even if it's a bit far away. We want to meet with the business, to meet with the business users, with the clients, and just really make sure we understand their business. And that's one of the strengths of BGFi Analytics, is that we have a lot of really experts and technical people who understand the jargon, who understand all the particular vocabulary, and who actually will love that. So we went there, and the idea was to do a three-phase project where you have first a data analysis, which is always necessary when you want to dig into later machine and deep learning stuff. So data analysis, then machine learning, deep learning, big data, and then real-time architecture, because what we created had to work in real time. And the deliverable then integrated in the production chain. So it's something where we provide insights, where we can judge about a current situation, where we can propose new things to make the business evolve, and then something that can be used. That's also very important. So the whole thing. And then this last typical project, which here is also ongoing, and it's a long-term project. The scale would be several months to a year with a neurochain tech, and that's like what we like the best, and what we also are the best at is the full innovation project, where we constantly collaborate and interact to try to make a whole business evolve. It takes a bit of time, but the thing is that, again, as I said, the interest of the external innovation cell, the main point, the main advantage, is that you don't have to restructure your functioning. You don't have to break everything down, because we adapt to you, and that's the idea of how an innovative process should work and how it would be successful. So this neurochain tech collaboration is, so neurochain tech is a platform that enables you to connect any big data tool and any blockchain environment or ecosystem that you want. And the idea was, okay, we have a lot of different sources of data. We can connect to a lot of different blockchains, if not all the blockchains. And we start to have a bit of machine learning and deep learning, but we want to add way more. What would you propose? Basically, that's that. And that's this innovative process that go together, them and us. And that is, iteratively trying to come up with concrete innovation products. And we can apply what we developed in logistics, in transport, in banking, in a lot of things, using their platform and us bringing us our knowledge and our abilities to develop concrete things. And I'm going to wrap up now. So just to sum up, this modern innovation now is way more data-driven than previously, than beforehand, and that the data is really a special raw material that you can manipulate, that you can experiment on as much as you want without losing it, without having to put your business on pause. And that's the big interest in trying to shift the paradigm of your business to go towards data-centric kind of business. But innovation, as we saw, is difficult, is anxiogenic. There are different ways to innovate with data, but most of them are very expensive and can be tricky, critical. So we propose this external innovation cell where you have researchers, PhDs, technical experts, and consultants, collaborators, a lot of people who compose a mini startup that we can really plug and play to your business needs and provide you with the innovation you need. And voila, that's all from me. And thank you for attending this webinar. If you have any question, if you're interested in just discussing and maybe having some projects and advice, and let's work together. So don't hesitate to contact me, and have a wonderful day, and see you soon.